Hello everyone, I'm Dave Thomas, and today I am building the Cosmic Cascade from Estes rockets. This is the third in the Cosmic series, which include the Cosmic R.E.A.R and the Cosmic Cargo, which is a payloader. And this takes that one step further. So this has a small payload section, and it's also a two-stage rocket. And this is part of several rockets that Estes has come out with for the 2025 catalog, of just a whole bunch of relatively quick to assemble models that don't require a whole lot of decoration and such. And so these can go from package to launch pad in a matter of a few hours. So here I'm going to go through and make sure we have everything. Alright, now something to be aware of here, I'll bring it up here. There are a sustainer and a booster part of this. The booster has the larger set of fins. Okay, you don't want to get those two reversed or it may not be stable. So we'll go ahead and open up our instructions first just to the front and find our parts list. Okay, so alright, so this one is the booster. It looks like it's got the larger fins. Okay, has a plastic fin can and a retainer. Yes, this is the boosters. That's got the retainer nut there. This also has the parachute in it. This is a reinforcement decal for the launch lug. And the launch lug is pre-installed here on the body tube. So that makes this end the aft end. In the other small parts package here, we've got the fin can for the sustainer, the linkage between the booster and the sustainer, and then we've got the fins here as well. Now, wait a minute. You know, you would think they would put these in the proper order, but no. All right, let me take this apart. Okay, so in this package we have fin can. Alright, and there's our retention net there. We've got the parachute. Alright, now these are the bigger fins though, so these go on the booster. Alright, so that would be here, here. Okay, so booster fin can, motor retainer, good. Okay, I just got myself a little confused there. We're good. Okay, and then the other small parts package here. Alright, this should be for the sustainer. Alright, so here's our sustainer fin can. Alright, and then these parts here, okay, this is the engine retainer when you're using it as an upper stage, and then this is the coupler for the cargo area, the payload bay, and then this is a little coupler assembly here. Alright, and this uses what's called gap staging. And so there's not direct contact between the two motors here like you see it in many two-stage kits. Instead, there's actually a gap here, and this hole here is supposed to be there. That relieves some of the pressure caused by the hot burning material as we go from the booster to the sustainer. So don't cover that up. It's supposed to be there. Alright, and then the shock cord is already mounted, and it's inside the body tube there. So if you can't find your shock cord, that's why. It's already in there. So for now, I'm just going to tuck it back in so it's out of the way. Okay, I'm going to clear most of this away and we will start working on the fins. Now the first thing I'm going to do is actually down here at step 7 of the second section here, and that's just simply apply this reinforcement. And the reason I'm doing it now is just so I don't lose it. Okay, there may be a little bit of excess cement there, just peel that away. Alright, so this is a clear rounded square. Find an edge that will actually peel here. Alright, and what people try to do is just slap this across really quickly. And what you actually want to do is center this as best you can. Okay, that's pretty close. Okay, and now I'm just going to do the center of it. So squish that down. Now we don't want to just fold this over because we want to get it into the edge here. And so I'm using my fingernail to first let that adhere along the sides of the launch lug before we smash it down onto the body tube. Alright, once you've got that, then go ahead and press down the rest of this onto the body tube and squish out as many of the air bubbles that you can. Okay, and that part's done. You can get rid of that. It's garbage. And we'll set this aside again. Okay, so first we're going to go ahead and assemble the booster. So this is going to be this part here. Let's make sure we got it right here. It's so easy to get these two confused, and I think the fin cans are actually identical. Yes, they are. Okay, so you can pick either one of these. Okay, and then they're going to put some plastic cement on. Now you can use the tube type plastic cement, or you can use a thicker brush on type. Either one is fine. If you have the really runny brush on type, you got to work really quickly because it tends to evaporate a lot. Right, I'm going to use a thicker brush on. This is the Tamiya cement. Okay, and what we'll do, I'm going to do the same thing to both of these so they can be drying. Okay, so initially, what we want to do is find the side that has the little projections here, right along there. Okay, and we're going to carefully apply cement to this outside edge. Alright, and even along here. Now don't get a whole bunch on the threads. We just want enough to stick it together. Alright, and then we're going to take the other side here, match it up to the little pegs. Alright, and then we'll just squeeze that together. I'm going to hold this for about a minute, and then I'll let it dry, and we'll do the same thing to the other can as well. Now I've set that booster fin can aside to dry. We're going to do the same thing here on the sustainer, or upper stage. Okay, and once again, just put those two halves together, match up the little pins there, and once again here I'm going to hold it for about a minute and then set it aside to dry as well. Now while the two fin cans are drying, I'm going to move down here to the payload bay. Now the way the instructions show it, they don't use any glue here. They simply put the tube onto the side of the coupler here that does not have the eyelet, and then the nose cone goes on here. And what they suggest is taking some clear tape and wrapping that around here so that it covers both the coupler part here and the tube. And then we'll put usually masking tape on the inside to make sure this is good and snug. Otherwise, what can happen is when the ejection charge goes off, this hits the end of the shock cord and that nose just pops off and keeps on going. All right, you can do it this way if you like. I'm actually going to glue mine into place. So here, I would recommend using either the gel type super glue like I have here, or the tube type of plastic cement, something that's got a little viscosity to it. But since we are doing two different substances, I found that the gel type super glue works best. I'm just going to run a bead of glue around the inside of this. Okay, and again, make sure you got the open side here. Now, something else you want to be aware of is that this is open. Okay, so theoretically then, when the ejection charge goes off, some of those hot gases might come into your payload bay. Depending on what your payload is, you may or may not want that. So what I would recommend is putting like a piece or two of recovery wadding down inside this and kind of tamp it down to act as a seal. Okay, now I'm just going to put this into the tube here. I'm going to rotate it as I do to get good coverage there. And then now we'll set this aside. Now I'm not gluing the nose cone on because I do want a functional payload section. And that will simply go on here. When we do the final assembly of the rocket, I'll determine how much tape I need there. Alright, my fin cans should be good to go here. So I'm just going to choose one of them. I'm going to do the larger fins, so this will be the booster. Okay, now you don't need to have any glue for this. These just slip into place and you push them forward like that. And so they'll friction fit and hold themselves there. And then the engine retainer cap here will also keep them from sliding back. So just make sure that this little pointy part is going forward. Now if you want to, you can take some of the runnier plastic cement and just kind of brush it in along the seams here. And that stuff, even if you use a little too much, once it dries, it's not very noticeable. Okay. Now this one is going to have just the plain regular retainer screw here. Alright, we'll just put that on for now. Alright, same thing down here. We're going to put on the smaller fins, and this will be the sustainer fin can. Alright, we're working in the same way here. Pointy end goes forward. A little resistance there. There we go. Okay, and then in the same way, we'll put this on. Now notice this retainer nut's a little bit different, and that's because this will join to the booster at this point here. Okay, so that's how I'm going to put this on there, so that way I'll know which one is my booster and which one is the sustainer. Okay, and then we're going to come down to the body tube. Okay, so now we're going to take our body tube. I'm going to take the shock cord out the front end so that I don't accidentally glue it. Okay, now here again you can use either tube type cement or you can use the gel type super glue. I'm going to do a dry fit first and just kind of stretch the tube out. Now when we get this done, the launch lug there should be centered between any two of the fins. It doesn't matter which ones. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. And then like I did before, I'm just going to run a bead of glue along the inside edge of this tube. Now something else you can do, it's not required, but especially where this is going to have more stress on it than the payload bay does, you can take just a little bit of sandpaper here of just about any grit and just quickly sand the area that's going to join there. And I say you don't need much, it's just going to give a little more surface area for the cement to attach. And then we'll put that in. And make sure we're centered between two. We are. Okay. You can give it a little back and forth there as you need to adjust it. Okay. And so, whoop. Yes, there we go. No. Yes. Okay. Alright, so we'll set that aside to dry. We'll come back to our booster, and we're going to do the same thing here. You don't have to do the sanding part, but I'm going to here. I'm just going to sand it a little bit. students in the hall behind me. Okay, so this is going to go on here like this, and this is going to be kind of snug, so I'm going to make sure it test fit it here. Stretch it out just a little bit. Now it doesn't matter which edge this goes off to, it just needs to be clear. Alright, so once again, use your tube plastic cement or gel type super glue here. Okay. I'm actually going to line that up with my odd fin just for the heck of it. There we go. Okay, and we will let that dry. While we're waiting for all of that glue to dry, we'll go ahead and assemble the parachute. Now most of this comes pre-assembled. All we need to do is attach it. Okay, and so here in the instructions they're showing just to tie it onto the coupler for the payload bay. Alright, which is fine. But if you've seen any of my other videos, you know I don't like to do that. I like to be able to remove my parachutes easily. Okay, so we'll go ahead and open this up and pull apart the loops of the shroud lines here so that they're not all tangled up. Okay, and then you're just going to put that on one finger. With your other hand, you're going to grab the middle of the parachute sheet here, and then we're just going to move those shroud lines back and forth until all of the corners are about the same place. Okay, now if you're going to do this their way, you're going to take your payload bay here, put those loops through the eyelet. Alright, now you're going to pull that eyelet open, and this, another reason I don't like this is it's too easy to get your shroud lines uneven. Alright, but you're going to pull the parachute through there and then pull it tight down. Now I'm not going to do that because I'm going to put a screw eye on, or not a screw eye, a snap swivel on this. So now I'm going to fold it back out again. We're going to do the same thing. So isolate and then gather up the shroud lines here. Okay, make sure everything is all at the same roughly level there. Okay, now I'm going to gather up my loops once more, and I've always got them tight within my hand here so they're not slipping as I handle this. Alright, now this is a screw eye, or I don't know why I keep saying screw eye. This is a snap swivel. You can get these in the fishing sections of various stores. It doesn't really matter the size of it in terms of its weight. But the clip part here, the snap part, has to be able to go over the eyelet and move freely. If it binds sideways or something like that, you need to get a bigger one. So I'm going to take the swivel end here. I'm going to pass my loops through it. Okay, re-grab them once more. Okay, so now we got loops again. And now I'm going to pass the entire snap swivel through. And I'm going to pull the loops downward like this, and then I'm just going to pull those tight. Come back and check that my corners are still about where I had them, and they are. If they're not, if something has moved, you can just loosen this and try again. But if it is where you want them to be, then you can just take a little bit of wood glue or white glue here. And just put just the tiniest little bit on there. That's even too much there. And just kind of work that into the knot. Take off the excess there. And that'll simply keep the shroud lines from coming off again and changing their relative lengths. It's now time to put everything together. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of masking tape on the nose cone. And it may not need a full circumference here. You can adjust this as necessary. But it should be really snug when you put it in here, because we don't want this accidentally coming off. That glue hasn't quite set. Alright, I'm going to delay the rest of this just a little bit longer, because if that glue hasn't set, the other ones haven't either. I've let the glue dry for an additional 20 minutes or so. And so now we can go ahead and put this all together. So I'm going to attach the shock cord to the coupler here on the payload bay. Now if you've tied your parachute on, it will be here already. If you've done the snap swivel, I recommend doing it after we get this part done. Alright, and then pull that tight from all directions so it cinches down really well. And here again I like to put just a little dab of some white glue or wood glue just to lock down that knot. Okay, and it doesn't take much, just enough to get into the knot itself. And then this excess here I'm going to cut back to about 5 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch or so. And this just makes it so it doesn't accidentally get caught between the body tube and the coupler there. It's a little bit short. You don't want to cut it all the way back to the knot. Alright, and I'm going to hook on my snap swivel here right next to the shock cord. Clip that on. Now again, what we want here is the snap swivel should move freely back and forth along here. If it's getting hung up where it can't move because it's stuck sideways, get a bigger snap swivel. Alright, now if you're prepping this immediately for launch, place 3 to 4 pieces of recovery wadding, kind of loosely wadded down inside there. Follow that with your shock cord here. And you just kind of randomly stuff that in. Now with your parachute, there are lots of different ways to fold parachutes. I'll show you my current favorite. Okay, so what we're going to do is take the middle 2 corners and put them over each other. Alright, and that will make the other 2 corners now also over each other. Alright, so I'm going to take one side, put its corner onto the center, and do it with the other side as well. So now all of the corners are lined up down at the bottom of this triangle. Okay, now take the shroud lines here, find about the midway point, pull that up into your triangle, fold the edges over the shroud lines, encapsulating them like that. Take the vertex here and fold it down at about halfway, and then fold the sides in and kind of roll that into a cylinder, and now that's going to go directly in. Okay, now get all your other loose pieces here and stuff those in, and make sure you don't get things caught between the body tube and the coupler. Now mine's a little loose here, so if I do a shake test, it's going to come right out. So I'm going to put just a little bit of masking tape on this side. And this is something you want to check at every launch because changes in temperature and humidity can change how the diameter of this is. And so it may swell a little bit or it may loosen a little bit. All right, but you shouldn't be able to shake it loose, but it still should come out with a minimum amount of pressure there. Okay. Now again, if you're prepping for launch, the upper stage engine goes in here. So this will have a motor that has an ending number other than 0, like A85 or B66 or something like that. That will go up in here with the nozzle facing this way. All right, and then you'll put this on as tight as it goes. All right, you don't have to wrench it down, just finger tight. All right, your booster motor will go in here, and that motor will have an ending digit of 0. So A80, B60, C60, anything like that, that does not have a delay charge and it doesn't have an ejection charge. It's just fuel. Okay, so you'll put that in there in the same way, lock that down, and then this will go on here. Now this should not be that loose. So again, if you need to, add a little bit of masking tape. Now here it's really a fine line because we do want this to separate, but we don't want it to fall off. So I'm just going to do this a little bit of tape at a time here. Okay, that probably still needs a little bit more. Alright, now this excess tape here, if it's only a little, you can fold it onto the ring there. But you don't want it sticking up where it could occlude this portal there. All right, that feels pretty good. Now, some people like to have their fins in line, some like to have them canted so that they're interposed with each other. The main thing is here though is you've got to have the launch rod go by this. So in this case you can have them canted between each other but not centered. All right, so you need a free passage of the launch rod between these fins and between these fins. So usually for something like this, I'll just line them up. Okay, and then the other thing you have to make sure of is that the engine retainers also don't interfere with the launch rod. So you want to make sure the launch rod is going between the knurls here. And you might have to just back it off, just a slight turn there as needed. Okay, and then as far as decorations go, you can launch it naked like this. It's meant to be decorated though with permanent markers or watercolor markers and stickers and things. Something that students can do on their own with minimal supervision and minimal mess. Now there is another way you can do this. Now this is one I did earlier and I messed up on it. I put the wrong fins on the wrong stages here. I'm going to see if it flies anyway, but it'll definitely be a heads-up flight. But in this case I used self-adhesive vinyl to finish it here. And then I also had a leftover decal from another model, the Game Over by Custom Rockets. But this is all the silver here, the black, the silver, and the gold down here. That's all just self-adhesive vinyl that you would use in a Cricut machine or a Silhouette machine or a similar craft cutter. You don't have to have the machines to use the vinyl though. Okay, so you can fly it now, or I'm actually going to do the same thing. So if you want to watch the video for a little bit longer, I'll show you how to put on the vinyl. Now, if you do want to do something other than, say, markers and stickers and such, if you want to paint the rocket, or if you're going to vinyl it like I am here, it's actually easier to do that before you assemble it, so that you don't have to worry about fins and things in the way. But if you've got to this point and want to do it anyway, the first thing you'll need to do is draw a straight line down the length of the body tube. And this will be a guideline for where we put the vinyl edges. Alright, so I've got my Estes tube marker here. You can also use a door frame for this, but again the problem is getting the fins out of the way. It doesn't matter really where you start this. I'm going to do it kind of in line with the launch lug. That way any overlap will be hidden by the launch rod. Okay, and then the pieces that will go down below here, if you're going to use them, are easier to eyeball, and so we don't really need the line here. Okay, so this vinyl comes in lots of different colors, metallics, holographics, plain colors, things like that. I'm going to use some silver here on the top section. So the first thing I need to do is measure this. Now keep in mind, some of these go edge to edge, so the vinyl goes all the way over. This particular piece has a border to it that you have to account for. Okay, so on the backs of these, they've got a grid that helps make things easier to align. Alright, so taking into account where that border is, I'm going to come up to here approximately. I'm actually going to give myself a little more room on the vinyl because I can let it overhang the edge and then I can cut around that easily. Okay, so I'm going to cut there for the length, and then for the circumference I can just wrap this around with the backing facing outward. Alright, and then I can see where that's going to overlap, and it's going to be about where that line is. Okay, so I can come to about there. And then to cut this, just use a hobby knife and a straight edge. So I'm going to cut this in this direction first. And depending on the thickness of the vinyl, you may have to do this more than once. Okay, now I'm going to come over here and get at the other dimension. Okay, now this smart vinyl that Cricut makes, it is permanent, but it does allow you to reposition things a little bit. Okay, so here, let's see here, I'm going to take my nose off. There we go. I'm just going to give myself a little work room here. So when this goes on, it's going to extend up a little bit beyond the edge, and that's what I want, because then I can trim it back flush. Alright, and it's going to go on like that. So I'm going to peel this off, and I'm going to get my line here. Okay, now if you want to, you can even overlap it onto the coupler a little bit. And so if I'm really confident of my edge, I can do it this way. Now the key here is just putting it down a little bit at once and not getting any dirt on the back side, because that makes little lumps. Alright, and just put down a little bit at a time. Keep a little bit of tension on it here. Okay, and especially if you didn't glue this payload bay onto the coupler, having it overlap down here will help hold it in place. Okay, now we got that pretty straight, and we've got just a little bit of overlap there. And so now I'll just take my knife again, use a little bit different blade. Alright, I can just shave this off. Try not to cut into the body tube. Okay, and now if we put the payload bay back on there, it looks nice and clean. You do see a little bit of the tube spirals there. A little bit of something got under that. Okay, and that's basically what we'll do for the rest of the rocket here in that same line. Now when we get down to the launch lug here, you could try and do an entire wrap from fore to aft here and cut this part out. I'll tell you right now, that's going to be really difficult. All right? If you're really good at precision cutting, maybe. I know that I am not, so I am not going to try that. I'm going to go fish out a different color here and see what else we can do with this. Now, like I did on my mistake version of this rocket, I'm going to use gold down here on the staging collar. Okay, now once again we have to worry about these border areas, but here I'm just going to get a width. Okay, so it's just over an inch. So if I come up a little bit more, I'll be able to do a little bit of an overlap there like we did before. here I'm just going to cut an overly long length, because I'll probably use a little bit of this up on the sustainer as well. Well, I forgot, after warning about that, I still forgot to take account of that edge. Alright, we'll save that for something else. And I'll do this again. I wonder if that's why this was on clearance. Nobody likes having that edge there. Okay, now we'll go ahead and wrap this around, and allowing for a little bit of overlap. We'll put it right at the dotted line there. Okay, now here I didn't put a line on it. I can kind of eyeball this one, I hope. All right, so I'm overlapping just a little bit onto the plastic there. And we'll just kind of squish that down all the way around. And then like before, we will just shave off the excess vinyl. We want to make sure we don't have anything sticky above the coupler here, or you could have the two stages sticking together. Okay, so we can set that aside. And now coming back to the main part of the rocket. Now I came across this. This is a kind of a holographic color shifting type of vinyl. I'm trying to decide if it's going to go with the rest of the colors on the rocket. Might be kind of like a Hawaiian shirt. They're just all loud. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, I think, is I'm going to save this piece for up here. I've got some more of it here. Okay, so first I'm going to do this part here. Okay, because it's going to wrap edge to edge here. So I'm going to measure that. Come out a little bit because of the glue here. Let me see if I can trim that. since it's kind of oozed out there, it's going to make a tight edge connection with the vinyl a bit difficult. Got some of it off. Okay, maybe do here. Okay, so now I'm going to use my measuring edge like that, so that would go to here. Alright, and a full wrap allowing for a little overlap. That's a lot of overlap. Okay, so I'm going to say that's about halfway on that. Okay, so I'm going to cut that edge first. Okay, and I'm going to cut this just a little bit past there. Okay, now we're not doing a full overlap, even though that's what I measured. I'm going to go from here to here, just before that line. Alright. Sure got my right dimensions here, so that should go from there around to there. And that looks like it's going to be pretty close. Now we'll take my X-Acto knife here, just lightly cut that right against the seam. Be careful you don't cut into the body tube. Nope, I cut through the reinforcement. Well, isn't that special? Okay. I'm not too worried about that, as it's glued in well. It's still reinforced here. Potentially, I guess you could put some vinyl over this. I think it's just going to make it look worse. Alright, and now okay, I'm going to take this bigger piece that I have. Alright, and that's going to overlap just a little bit down there and kind of cover that up. And it's just long enough to go beyond the edge of the body tube. Alright, now if we line this up again, turn it around. I don't have a good grid on that end. Alright, so that's going to go just past that line there. Okay, now we'll take this piece and peel it. And we do now have our marking guide here. Now I'm afraid of getting little dirt particles on it, so I'm going to bring a stand in. Squeeze all the air bubbles around it. Like that. And the seam is not very noticeable where it joins down there, so that's good. Okay, and once more we're going to shave off this part. Now we've got to be careful that we don't cut the shock cord there. As I said, if you know you want to do this ahead of time, definitely do it before you put all this together. It will make your life much easier. Alright, see how badly it clashes. It actually goes with the purple fairly well. Now for this bottom ring here, I'm going to use silver again. This is a little bit darker silver than the one we used on the upper part on the payload bay. Okay. And we don't have as much overlap room because the fins almost go all the way up there. So we're going to try about here. Alright, now let's see how that looks. Wrap it, that's going to hit right there on the launch lug, go all the way around, and just miss the fins. Okay, I'm going to reverse that to see where we need to cut it. Okay, right about there. Now this vinyl is a little bit thinner than the other one. A little harder to get off too. There we go. Okay, so here I'm going to go just a little bit over where the launch lug is. And I'm going to stretch this a bit as we turn. Okay. Alright, now if we put it all together, alright, so we go purple to silver, purple stripe, holographic orange, kind of a grayish silver, a little bit of gold. It's flashy, but I think it still goes together. So, hope you had fun building this with me. Have a great launch and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for more of my videos.